Okay, my friends, the magic clock has hit the magic hour. I don't know who thought of a class at 9:15 on a Tuesday morning, but whoever did. Do you want me to speak into the microphone? Do you want me to speak louder? Do you want to actually hear what I have to say? That's an interesting, innovative. Thank you. V'chasta Hashem. So I should repeat them? Okay, great, no problem. Anyone else have a comment to make? I was requested to repeat the comments that were made. I'm going to do that. Okay, Yasher Korach. Today's learning, L'ilui Nishmas, Rezel Bat Yosef, Meir, Mordechai ben Moshe, Limud ben Avram, Daniel ben David, and for Shlema, for Aram ben Esther Rachel, and Hanan ben Malka B'toch Sha'ar Chole Yisrael. Okay, my friends. Forewarned is forearmed. Put your seatbelts on. Today's shir is not simple. No one left yet. Vayikach Korach, ben Yitzhar ben Kahat, ben Levi, and Datan and Aviram, sons of Eliav, and On, son of Pelet, the offspring of Reuven. They stood before Moshe with 250 men from the children of Israel, right, leaders. They gathered together and they said, Kol Eidah Kulam Kedoshim, the whole nation is holy. Umadua titnasua ka'al Hashem, why are you raising yourself up? And particular, he wanted to be the Kohen Gadol instead of Aaron. And Moshe Rabbeinu says to him, and he says, in the morning, God will make known, Boker. In the morning, God will make known who the true leaders are. And as source number 2, Rabbi Artscroll points out, in the morning to give time. It's like, buffering. Maybe they'll change their mind overnight. Tomorrow, he told them, you and the 250 people should bring a ketoret. The ketoret, that incense offering, was always very, intense. Let's put it that way. Nadav and Avihu brought a ketoret and were burned, yeah? And that will be the clear indication of who's who. Now, today's shir is you will see there are no Litvish sources. It is a complete Hasidic shir. Now that's unusual because I'd like to balance it out. So obviously, we're entering into a different sphere. And I'd like to do it every once in a while. Like my daughter said to me, she said, the one who helps me out, she says, Ima, what are women going to learn from this shir? Okay. I said, I have practical, my up there practical. I said, but more than anything, the fact that Torah is so deep and there's so many levels to Torah, that in itself, the appreciation of Torah, I say is a worthwhile lesson. And again, I don't do it that often, but to do it once every year, magiali. And since I'm doing the shir, I decided. What really was the impetus was the loss of the Mashgiach, Rav Wolfson, who we will quote, Rav Moshe Wolfson, and the person who's taken over Emunas Yisrael Shul is his grandson, his daughter's son, the Stachina Rebbe, and Otzar Gilyonei Divrei Torah is from the Stachina Rebbe. I did not know how to spell it, hence you do not have it in front of you, but I am telling you that's who it's from. We have never used him before, and we're going to be using him extensively today. Am I making sense? So here we go. That was the end of my introduction. He says, I'm in the underline. When I look at the Chumash, be'ofen nigla, in the Torah of learning Pshat, Rishonim. Korach's a big Russia. V'zot hein al pi Pshat v'hein al pi divrei Chazal b'nigla HaTorah, b'niglas HaTorah. When you look at Chazal, the Midrashim, and even in the Nistar of Torah, Korach is the Baal Machloket, He was kafar ben nemunaso shel Moshe Rabbeinu. The pasuk tells us, "V'lo yekid Korach v'kadaso." I mean, there's no doubt about it. Korach is a Rasha. We all agree? Great. Stop. However, in the continuing underline, omnam in the arrow, le'idach gisa means, on the other hand, mifarash b'sifrei chasidus b'harchava. When you look at the books, the writings of the Chassidus, you will find Milos Gedolos al Korach. Korach is a great person. And the Arizal speaks about the Korach Atid Lavo Tikuno, that Korach in the future is going to be the Kohen Gadol with Aaron. And Ula'asi Lavo Yomel Korach Madrega Nelos Bioter. And because he really had a Kavanah Tova. And you know, if you take a look at it, and this is very fascinating, there are many Mizmorei Tehillim that Korach's sons authored. The fascinating thing is, even though we know their names, they're referred to as B'nai Korach, right? We have Rosh Hashanah, we just talked about it coming up, Lam Natseach Livnei Korach Mizmor 7 times. The fact that I'm mentioning it as Livnei Korach, and I'm mentioning Korach's name with these capital Tehillim, must mean that there must be some redeeming value that he has. Otherwise, he wouldn't get, in my language, such great press. Could you hear this? So there must be another side to Korach that we need to try to understand. Our mahalach today, which we'll get to in a minute or two, but I'm just going to present now for our needs, is that Korach is coming from Levi, who's a side of din, who's a side of justice. What that means, just hold on the back burner. I'll get to it literally in a minute or so. Din, justice, judgment, has a lot to do in common with Korach. And I'm now doing 4A and 4B outside. We're going to be doing a lot outside, but you have the sheets if you want to look inside. Din, the way I view it, is very negative. Din, in its core, is all chesed, is all kindness. So din is a perfect model of Korach, where the core reality is one way, and the way it's perceived is another way. So there's that connection between the two. Like we know, and this is 4C, we say the bracha, Baruch Dayan HaEmes, on bad news. In the future, we're just going to say the bracha of what? Hatova Meitiv, everything's good. We're not holding there yet. Okay, so that is our premise for today. That Korach looks one way, but at core, there's a whole different picture. What that different picture is what we're going to enter into today. Any questions so far? Yes?
The test in Tehillim doesn't say, I don't think this is one second by Korach, but it says that Shmuel is on the same as Moshe. Did Korach have Nebuah?
Yes. He knew.
Did that influence what?
That
he was going to have a descendant?
Yes. That is what he was, let me repeat it, that Korach saw Beruach HaKodesh, he was going to have a descendant like Shmuel, and that is what helped him in this rebellion. That's in the world of Pshat. So you're right. You're 100% right. The Sfarim bring it down, but we're going to take a different angle today. But you're right. Now, 5A. Mesilas Bavava Rav Eisenberger, quoting the Ramchal. The Ramchal we know for writing the Mesilas Yesharim. The Ramchal was a tremendous makubal. And a lot of the writings of the Ramchal are really, really up there and out there. The Ramchal Megillah Sitarim, Likutei Torah, says the following in the bracket of 5A. Kavanato shel Korach hayta levalvel kol hasidarim. Korach's interest was to mix around the order. Aaron haya kohen ubesod chesed. Aaron was a kohen, and he represented chesed. Based on the pasuk, Ula Levi Amar, we know this from the over and over again in Simchas Torah. Tumecha v'urecha leish chasidecha. Tumecha v'urecha are the Urim v'Tumim. Leish chasidecha, the Kohanim are referred to as the Ish Chesed. Yeah? The Korach haya Levi Besod HaGevurah. Korach is coming from Levi, who's the side of Gevurah, of strict judgment. Levi is the one who fought against Shem. Levi was the one who killed his kinsmen by Chet HaEgel. Levi is the what? The din. He's the judgment. And that's Pshat. Vayikach Korach, we all ask, it goes up to Levi and it doesn't go back to Yaakov. So according to this, we understand it. Vayikach Korach, Korach is taking the attribute of Levi, not the attribute of Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu is the Midah of Tiferet, which is what? A mixture of Chesed and Din. He's not going back until Yaakov Avinu. He's going until Korach, the midah of din, of strict judgment, lahagbir hagvura la chesed. And this is what Korach wanted. Korach wanted to be the Kohen, meaning that generally we know in 5b that tafkid halavim be'avarot hamikdash lidbatel v'lamod l'tzidam shel kohanim. Generally, the job of the Levim, right, they were the gatekeepers and the singers. Their job was to serve the Kohanim. In Kabbalistic language, their job was to have Gevurah be subsumed under Chesed, which is the way Hashem wanted the world, right? Remember Hashem originally created the world? He said, I want to create the world in din. And then he said, whatever that may mean. Yeah, I'm just using language, but it means much deeper, yeah? And Hashem said, oh my, we can't have a world of din, it's too intense, and then therefore brought in chesed. And that's the world we have. We have a din and chesed combination. What did Korach want? He wanted just din, which meant that he wanted to bring the world to its perfection, its Mashiach, right? Hence the title, Ultimate Utopian Uprising. The title is my hardest part of this year, hands down. Oh, so that's page 3 and 4. I'm not there yet. So excellent question, Robertson. Did he really want it for OUisrael or not? But let's assume for here and now, yes. Let's use that assumption that he really felt that this was the time, and this is the end of 5b and the squiggly. Ubikesh Korach lorer hagazu biyamav lagbir gevurah shel levim ala chasadim shel kohanim. And b'nei b'zman Moshe la paga aval la'asid b'mheira b'yameinu yekein al kein az yitalua dat Korach. In the future, that indeed will be that way. Why now? So source number 9. We move to the next page. Why now? Avoda Tasha Rebbe. I told you we're having Hasidic sources today. Just hold on tight. The Tasha Rebbe explains the following. There is an interesting question when the rebellion of Korach happened. That's in the Mefarshim. Did it happen at the beginning of the period in the Midbar? Did it happen after the Meraglim? If you hold that it happened soon after Chet HaEgel, it makes a lot of sense. Because at Mamad Har Sinai, they got what? Paska Zumasam. They went back to the level of Adam Arishon before the sin. Then they fell. And then Hashem said what? I forgive you. So in Korach's mind, ומפני כך חשב שהעולם צריך להנהג על ידי לווים שמידת הגבורה, שכח, כמו שיהיה לא סילבו, ולא הבין, I'm in squiggly 9, ולא הבין, כי אף שקודש בריך הוא נדרץ על בני ישראל, שלא לחלותם, לא פסקה מהם זומת החטא על ביר הגוה. He understood that if they were forgiven, that means they went back to that pristine level. That's not what it means. It means he forgave them, but it doesn't mean we reverted back to that level. And therefore, Korach, and as the Tasha Rebbe says at the beginning of 9, he was no say to Aron. He carried the Aron. Let us not think that carrying the Aron, when really the Aron carried them, was a physical act. When they carried the Aron, they were surrounded by tremendous lights and energy that to a certain extent they were living in the dimension of perfection. And therefore, they really believed if we're living in this dimension of perfection, and the asterisks and 9 at the top, Hainu sha'aron ha'ir bahem or gadol, עד שמרוב האור ניסו יחד עם הארון, וזכו אז לראות האורות אשר יאירו באלף השביעי, בין התיקון השלם. They were able to see the future light. So Korach is coming from a dimension where he is living in that future time, really believing ki kol haida kulam kedoshim, the whole people are in that space, and therefore what is stopping us from bringing the redemption right here and now, where the Levim should become the Kohanim. Where there's no chesed, there's just Gevurah. Now, what this means, I want to try to look at on 2 levels. Okay, so now let's try to understand this on level number 1. And I'm telling you, my friends, even if you walk out of here saying, huh? It gives us a whole new what? Perspective. Okay, good. Even if it happened later, you could still say, well, I want to get to happening later. I'm getting there. I'm not there yet. I got to build. So I got to build. Very good, very good, very good question. The question is, ultimately, will the Kohanim be knocked out by Levim? Excellent question. I'm getting to it right now. You guys are doing great. So let's move right here. Well, good, all good. So I'm in the second source 6, which got knocked out by me. It's Rav Wilson. Does that sound? Feast of Faith. It's on the left side of the Tush. The back of the first page, the ascendancy of the Levim. It's English. Yeah? Okay, good. In Parshat Achrei, we explain that just as we grapple with our drive, so do Tzaddikim, ever all our desires rise from our lower instincts. The passions of Tzaddikim are to draw near to Hashem and to bring the era of Mashiach. This is what motivated the 250 people who brought Torah. They knew they would die, but their desire for nearness to Hashem superseded their survival instinct. Korach was driven by his great desire to bring Mashiach. Kohanim performed the avodah, and Levim are secondary, assisting in avodah through singing and guarding the doors. During the 40 years in the wilderness, they also carried the Mishkan and vessel during the travels. Levim are adjuncts to the Kohanim because of what each of them represent. Levim correspond to the midah of Gevurah, and the Kohanim to Chesed. Until the world becomes a perfect place, Gevurah needs to be contained in service to Chesed. So far, that was just a summary of what we've done. If you realize that, then you're in good shape. If not, you're still in good shape. Gevurah cannot be allowed to dominate because it demands din, flawless justice and perfection. As long as we're imperfect, the demands of Gevurah and its fullness of strength would cause constant sufferings and punishments, hampering our ability to grow and evolve through the trial and error that's the path of imperfect people. We need a lot of chesed, compassion, and our failures to be ignored in order to find our way. But the world of Gevurah, of perfection and awe, is a beautiful place. It's superior to the world of chesed. The footnote, which I didn't bring, you see a little footnote over Chazal, is you see this in art and music. Art and music, which is beauty, needs to have a certain level of what? Perfection to it, right? The notes have to be just perfectly played. The piece of art has to be... There is a sense of Gevurah that is beauty. Therefore, when Mashiach comes, and we will all have been perfected, the world will be run through the channels of Gevurah. Then we will blossom through its heightened awareness. It's only now that Gevurah being dominant is too dangerous. Korach, the most eminent of the Levim, was not satisfied with the Kohanim being primary. They were ascended only because the world was imperfect. Mashiach was not here. When Mashiach comes, the Arizal says, now this has a number of ways of understanding it. Welcome to life. The pasuk in Yechezkel says, "Vehakohanim ha-Leviim." The pasuk in Yechezkel. The Leviim will be the Kohanim. Now here's the question. Some people say the Kohanim won't lose their position, but they'll be joined by the Leviim. And Korach will be the Kohen Gadol along with Aaron. And there are some opinions that the Kohanim will become the Leviim. And there's also an opinion about the Bechorim also taking the role of the Kohanim. I know my son-in-law is in brisk learning kachim. And I'm like, why are you so into kachim? He says, I'm a bechor. So like I got to know kachim. Okay. If that excites you, that's great. Now, I want to just pause for a moment and look at a few insights on how the very psukim that we've learned our whole lives on Derech Pshat can now be looked at from this lens about Korach wanting to bring the future now. Idea number one is back in the Sechina Rebbe in 10. And he says, listen to what Moshe Rabbeinu tells him. Kulachem machtod Korach v'chol adaso. Each of you should take a frying pan. Utnu bahem eish, put a fire. V'simu aleihem ketoret, and an incense offering. Lifnei Hashem machar. In front of Hashem, machar. Machar means what? Tomorrow. What does machar also mean in Tanakh? Like Aaron HaKohen, we have Shiva Sabar Tammuz coming up. Chag Lashem machar. Machar isn't only tomorrow, it's the future time. That indeed, Shiva Sabar Tammuz, the Pasuk in Zechariah tells us, is going to turn into a time of Sasam v'Simcha. So what Moshe Rabbeinu is telling him is, yes, there will be a machar, there will be a tomorrow that you'll bring the ketoret. The machar isn't 24 hours from now. The machar is when? Mashiach's time. And it's very fascinating. It's a very famous Arizal. The pasuk in the capital for Shabbos, Mizmor Shir of Shabbos, we say, Tzadik katamar yifrach. The tzaddik is going to blossom like a date palm, a tamar tree. The end letters in Tzadik katamar yifrach. Tzadik, the end letter of Tzadik is a kuf. Katamar is a resh. Yifrach is a chet, is Korach. Korach indeed is going to blossom in the future. And he's going to have his full tikkun. What do we say at that end of that capital? We say, B'chatzrot Elokeinu yafrichu. In the chatzrot, in the courtyards of God, Beis HaMikdash, they are going to blossom. This is Korach. They are going to have a place. But when is it going to be? Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos. When is Shabbos? The Shabbos of Lasi Lavo. The future Shabbos. Very good. Machar is in connection with Amalek. Read 3 pages of the Sechina Rebbe, and he goes through that. 100%. Exactly. He speaks about that Machar is by Amalek, Machar is by Megillat Esther all over Machar, and that is just supporting this idea when Amalek will completely destroy. You're 100% correct. If I were to pick all the pieces of everything, I would definitely not have any audience on Tuesday morning. But you're 100% correct. It was a very good ha'ara, 100%. Now, why here? It's just, it's emphasizing it, the future. It's just stylistic. Now, here's a second example. I'm in source number 11. Ready? I'm doing it outside, so bear with me inside. I'm going to be doing a lot of this page outside. The Ketoret. What does the Ketoret represent? So we said the Ketoret is the model of din, of justice. If you bring the Ketoret the wrong way, goodbye, good luck, literally have a nice life. Now, who is of the Avos the model of din? We know clearly is Yitzchak Avinu. And we know that Yitzchak Avinu is the one who establishes the tefillah of mincha, right? The day is going down. We're entering into a period of darkness. When does Yitzchak Avinu misakein tefillas mincha? The pasuk said that he comes in ba'o be'er l'chai ro'i when he's bringing keturah as a wife for Avraham Avinu. Keturah is related to ketoret. The time of mincha is the time of ketoret, the time of din. In fact, you have the pasuk b'feirush says, I'm in the bracket in 11, tikon tfilasi prepare your tefillah, kitoret lefanecha, masad kapai, minchad erev. That the ketoret is connected to the gift of the evening. Now, which has to do with Eliyahu and Har Carmel, not going down there. Now, listen closely. When Moshe Rabbeinu says to Korach, Boker v'yodah Hashem et asher lo, in the morning we're going to know, and we know the Pasuk in Tehillim says, Lahagid ba'boker chastecha v'munascha ba'leilos. Boker is a time of what? Of kindness, of chesed. So says Moshe Rabbeinu to Korach, I want you to bring a ketoret which represents din, which represents mincha, which represents judgment. I want you to bring it at the time of the morning. If it is accepted, that will be an indication that boker, chesed, has now been, give me the word? You said replace. I'm going to use the word transformed, replaced. They're all the same into the Erev, and indeed, you will be right. This is the time of Mashiach. Boker v'yodah. In the morning we'll know. If morning remains morning, that means that we're still in a time where we need chesed. But if indeed you are accepted, then we know that what has trumped the morning, I shouldn't use the word trumped, what has overtaken the morning, I'm sorry, what has overtaken the morning is Gevurah. So far, we're with me, my friends. Isn't this a fascinating, it is. I couldn't hold myself back. Boker does indicate Geula, Kima, 100%. That's really the Ayelet HaShachar, the morning. But again, you're right. It's about transforming that morning experience. Now, I want to take a look at one more Nakuta on this, right? And that I'm going to do outside against Sechina Rebbe. It's hard to do them inside because I'm just pulling out, and there's so much more. 14 to 18. I'm going to share just one more Nakuta here. The pasuk says in Yeshaya, 5 lines down, Af yadi yisada aretz v'yimini tavcha shamayim. My hand planted the ground, and my right hand established the heavens. From this we see, symbolically, that God created the heavens with his right hand, and what's the other hand that he created the earth with? Well, if I have a right hand creating heaven, I'm left with my left hand. I'm left with my left hand. Forget it. I'm left with my left hand creating the ground. Left. What did you say? No, but it uses hand. If in the same pasuk it uses the right, so we know the other hand is the left. That's understood. Which means that the Shamayim is created with chesed. The right is always the sign of chesed, of kindness, and the ground is created with Gevurah. And hence we understand why when curses come to the world, who gets a lot of the curses? The ground. Because the ground, it's like matzah minet mino, right? One magnetic pull. The ground, right? Adam is punished, and who gets punished with Adam? The ground, right? The ground is because it is the source of din, of judgment. Yeah? Well, good. Korach is swallowed by the ground, but you're jumping the gun here, so I'm going to hold for a minute. You're right. You're working. Good. That explains why in the future we know the ground is going to produce, loaves of bread, Chazal say, because the ground is going to be perfected. And that explains the Gemara that says that in the future, Eretz Yisrael is going to spread to the whole world. because the ground is going to take on the level of Kedusha. That also helps us understand why the Levim don't yet have a portion in the ground, in the land, but in the future they will have a portion in the land. Now, with this in mind, my friends, this is a little bit complicated, but I'm going to try. 15 and 16. Korach, let's say he happened right after the Meraglim, which was Robinson's question. So Korach's looking at the Jewish people and saying, we're not allowed to go into the land. I get it. We're not worthy of being in the land to inherit it and to have a portion in the land. Good. But look at Klal Yisrael right now. Ki kolai da kulam kedoshim, they're all holy. They're all sitting and learning. They're all kolonics. They're all the guys of who? Levim, who also don't have a chelik in the land. So you're right. If it was about them coming into the land and inheriting the land, we wouldn't be worthy. But we're really coming into the land on a level of what? Of Kedusha, where we're all holy, that we'll all be in this land on a Levi level. And in that level, we are worthy of entering the land. And once we enter the land, we will then transform the land into Yemos HaMashiach, when Levi will be able to get a chelik in the land, a portion in the land, and will be able to live happily ever after. Now, really, we know, and this is brought down in the Sfarim, that Korach was a Gilgul of Cain. That's why Cain worked the ground. Cain was trying to be metakein, the ground. He wasn't successful. Korach wasn't successful. And hence, Korach was, as Gila mentioned, swallowed by the ground. We're still in the world of the ground being a curse, not a blessing. And until we move from that dimension, you will stay in the ground. This also explains in 18, parenthetically, oh my gosh, time's running on me. This also explains parenthetically why if a person kills by accident, he runs to a city called En Ir Miklat. This is 18. The Ir Miklat, those 48 cities of refuge, belong to who? The Levim. Because when you kill by accident, you've entered into the realm of Gevurah, and you need to be taught how to deal with that Gevurah by the Gevurah experts. Who were they? Levim. Okay, my friends. Now, where did Korach go wrong? Let's bring it down to our lives. Korach, back to Rav Wilson Zatzal, was holy, he was lofty, had noble intentions, but he made critical errors. Primarily, he erred in timing. In order for the world to be run according to Gevurah, in order for there to be equality, the people would need to have completed the process of self-perfection. In simple English, he was jumping the gun. The people had not yet worked on themselves to be on this level of perfection. If Gevurah is manifest too soon, it leads to destruction. All those who have not yet made it would be lost. Hashem will not bring the Olam Hatikun until every last soul has been rectified, cleansed, and included. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu is telling Korach. We understand when he says to them, Moshe says to Korach and his people, Rav Lachem, we understand that you have enough, you're Levim, like how much do you want? According to this, no. The reason you cannot be leaders right now is not because you're too small, but because you're too big. Rav Lachem, you're too great. If you became the leaders right now, it will destroy the world. Flipping around, Rav Lachem. And because the world was not yet ready for perfection, there was another blemish that doomed Korach, and that was jealousy. As explained in Parshat Shmini, all imperfection in the world, and there's obviously much more to this, is rooted in the diminishment of the moon. The diminishment of the moon came about because it was jealous of the sun. Well, it requires very advanced philosophical understanding and inkling what it means that the moon is jealous of the sun. It's quite simple and easy to understand how much jealousy there is in a world where the moon is diminished. And Korach did not realize. He did not realize that while his conscious intentions were l'shem shamayim, for Hashem's sake, there was a subconscious streaks of jealousy that tarnished them. He was jealous that Elisaphan ben Uziel, his younger cousin, was chosen over him. Now, what's fascinating, my friend, I'm up to the top right source, I think it says 21b. Korach so badly wanted to bring Mashiach, but instead he delayed it. He wanted to hasten the rectification of the moon, but instead prolonged the state of diminishment. The sin of Machloket shatters everything, pushing off the rectification of creation. But what's fascinating is, 22, it's precisely on Rosh Chodesh, when the moon begins to grow again, symbolizing its eventual complete tikkun, right? The Navi tells us that the moon will be as great as the sun in the future, when jealousy will disappear, that the congregation of Korah comes closer to their tikkun. The Gevurah relates a very famous story of an Arab who showed Rabbi Bar Chana the place where Korach and his people were buried. And they come out once a month and scream, Moshe emes v'Torah so emes. What day do they come out? Rosh Chodesh. Because Rosh Chodesh is the beginning of their tikkun. It's the beginning when the moon has that chance of being rectified. I just want us to see how all the pieces fit what? So perfectly together. Now, let's try to understand this a little bit deeper if we haven't been deep enough today. We have coming up this Shabbos Kodesh and Sunday, Rosh Chodesh, Tammuz. And we know that every month corresponds to a different one of the parts of the body, right? Which is fascinating in its own right. Tammuz corresponds to the eyes. The eyes. It also corresponds to the month of Ruvain, and Ruvain is about the eyes. Reuben, Shimon, Shama is the next month, according to where they traveled, which is hearing, which is what Av is about. Why is the month of Tammuz connected to the eyes? So Mesilas B'Vavam brings in 23 very clearly. The Meraglim's predominant time in the land was in Tammuz, and they saw the negative things in the land. Hearing is in Av because they came back and the people heard the negative report. Now, he notes here, did I get lost? I just flipped the page the wrong way. You're doing great. He notes here in 24, Kamokain hakilkul shel choser svias ratzon novat midera klal midat hakina edei mashro etzel acherim. When we talk about seeing, which is the month of Tammuz, on the one hand, it's about using the month of Shmiras Einayim, watching what we see. And particularly in our day and age, you have to be what? You have to be careful what you see. Even around here, I was driving here yesterday for the Shira and Shira. I knew I was somewhere yesterday, I couldn't remember where. And I was driving with my daughter, and she said to me, Ima, look at in Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh, what type of billboards they have of people who are not dressed. It's shocking. You know what I'm saying? And there isn't in your Shir Sinai by women, not only by men. This is not my shir for today. Now, you know, I was just reading, this is a parenthesis I don't have time for. I was just reading, there is a Magid shir in the Mir, Rav Arieli. Rav Arieli has probably the biggest shir, I think, in the world. Can I say that? Okay, so the Rebbitzin gives me the haskama to say that. The room is packed, and they have a hookup to another room, which is packed, which have been hundreds of bachrim. And they once asked Rav Arieli, I mean, in no way we're putting you down, yeah? But there are many great Magidei Shir. And what is it that you have the schutz? And he says, I'll tell you what I think it is. When I was a bacher, we used to get, I don't know, X amount of money. I didn't pay attention from where, and the bachrim would take the money. They'd buy a sefer, they'd buy something extra to eat. I took the money and I would take a taxi to yeshiva and not a bus so that I'd be able to watch my eyes and not see inappropriate things. And I believe in the schus of that Shmira Seinayim. I have the schus of being Marbitz Torah today. Very fascinating story. So, okay, that was the end of story time for today. Now, that is the classic understanding of Tammuz, that Tammuz is about Shmira Seinayim. Says Mesilas Bavavam, there's another aspect of the eyes. And that is using your eyes to appreciate what you have and not to look at what others have with jealousy. Which really is the Cheder Meraglim, as we spoke about at length last week, where they're afraid that they're going to be what? Demoted, right? It's the midah of kinna, of jealousy. Now, it's not by accident, and I alluded to this yesterday in 25, that each month of the year has another pasuk connected to it, which, with the Rashi Tevot or the Sofei Tevot, the first letters or the end letters of this pasuk, spell out another way to form the Yud Kei Vav Kei of Hashem's name. Again, classic is Nisan, the pasuk is, and you'll see this if you open up most Sidurim in the Rosh Chodesh benching, you'll see they have a list for every month, the pasuk. So for Nisan, it's Yismechu Hashemayim v'Sagel Haaretz, Yismechu, Yud, Hashemayim, Hey, v'Sagel, Vav, Haaretz, Hey, Yud Kei, Vav Kei, frontwards, Geula, everyone's happy, the heavens, the earth, everyone's singing. What is for Tammuz? Here we go, back in Rav Wolfson, this is Festivals of Faith, the pasuk by Haman. V'chol ze einenu shove li. I don't care that I am the richest man in the world and I have so many children and. All of this is worthless to me when one person isn't bowing down. I'm in the asterisk in 25. You take a look at the Hebrew there. V'chol ze einenu shove li. Ze, the letter ze has the letter hey, 25 asterisks. Einenu, the last letter is vav. Shove is hey. Li is yud. It's the Yud K Vav K backwards. When it's the end letters and backwards, you know that this is a month of tremendous judgment. But keep in mind, it's also a pasuk from Megillat Esther, says Rav Wolfson Zatzal, and Esther is about the Nahafochu, that ultimately this month is going to be what? The most joyous of the months. So that's what he says here, and I don't really have time to go through this because of my time. Tammuz. Tammuz will change to be the most joyous month. And that's what he says here, is that Korach, again, Korach is Korach. At the same time, when you have your eyes not leading you in the correct way, what could happen? You can become what? Jealous. But the Chiddush, that we know, the Chiddush that he says in 29 and through 31 is that this jealousy of Korach is coming from his midah of Gevurah. How so? Because when you're holding so much by Gevurah, there's no room for leeway, which means, what do you mean I got passed over? I am the next in line. It's my turn to be the prince. What's this business? When you have the midah of Gevurah, you're going to enter into situations in life where what's wrong? Order. Everything has to be exact. There's no vasranos, there's no giving in, there's no lifnei mishurat hadin. Everything is about, here's the key, the way you see it and the way it needs to be. So, albeit this is a negative quality, we understand where it's coming from based on who Korach is. And clearly, the message for us, remember my daughter, I have to come a message. The message for us is that the month of Tammuz, we have to use, A, our eyes to appreciate what we do have, and B, that idea of lifnim mishurat hadin. We can't live a world of pure din. The second nakuda, which I'm just going to make mention of because I haven't even gotten to the second level yet. Have you noticed that? Like, I know I do myself in every week. It happens every week. I know that. The Tasha Rebbe and Avodas Avoda says, Vayikach Korach, 33, Lakach et atzmo l'tzad echad. He moved himself to one side. Ki zot hayta shora shevio lidei chet. Right? Chazal say, Vayikach Korach, what did he take? Lakach atzmo l'tzad. That's Chazal. He took himself to the side. What does that mean? It means that taking himself to the side was his downfall. Ki ratzah shalom yinaheg b'tzad echad b'tzad smola. He wanted the whole world on the one side, the left side, the side of Gevurah, without bringing chesed into this. And life has to be about a balance and not about extreme. And on a deeper level, it means that he didn't want to be subservient to Aaron. He didn't want to be under chesed. I want to be standing on my own, which clearly the Tasha Rebbe Zatzal says is a Musar Haskel to us. How careful we have to be with the midah of Geos Nasud. Again, we spoke about this last week as well. That a person can know Kol HaTorah Kula, backwards and forward. But if they're doing it for themselves, they're doing it for their own aggrandizement, they're doing it that everyone should see how brilliant they are, they've what? They've missed the boat. And it's very sharp in 39, where Reb Chaim Vital says, one who has not refined their midos, who chaya ra'a mamish. He's like a wild animal. I didn't say it, I'm just quoting. I never say much, I just quote. And that's the Ramban, in the Gevurah Ramban in 37, V'chol adam yeh gadol mimecha beinecha, that everyone should be greater in your eyes. Respect everybody, show honor to everybody, recognize your place. And that's the key of life. The key of life is humility. When you're able to have the sense of humility, then you have all the midos. Okay, my friends, so let me summarize level number 1, and now I'm going to enter into level number 2 in the time that I have without stepping on Leah's toes. Or time. Korach, Tzaddik Tavar Yifrach. Wow! Shesuli b'Beit Hashem, b'chatzrot Elokeinu Yafrichu. Korach will be the Kohen Gadol. What was the issue? He jumped the gun. Where Korach wanted the utopian world to be right here and now. Where the Kohanim will not, the Levim will be the Kohanim. On this level, Levim, which is the midah of Gevurah, will be the ascending midah. We don't need the Kohanim. We don't need Chesed. We are going to be the core. And ultimately, when Klal Yisrael comes to that level of tikkun, we know. Now we follow Beis Hillel. In the future, Chazal say, we'll follow Beis Shammai. And Beis Shammai is the side of din. There will be a time that we'll enter into din. But we're not there yet. And Boker v'yodah, in the morning, if you can turn the Torah into morning, great. Machar, it will happen. But it's not now. Rav lachem. You're too great for the people right now. So far, so good. Question?
All this husband, but not in the land. This king, you can't bring all up there in the midbar.
Right, I agree with you. And that's why he felt that since Klal Yisrael are all Levim, let's go to the land right now.
But there was
I understand. Okay, good. You understand too.
Apparently Korach didn't.
Right. Okay. My friends, I want to flip this around a little bit and just make things a little more complicated so that you can be walking around completely dizzy by the time you walk out of here. The Talei Chaim, Rav Chaim HaKohen, otherwise known as the Chabad. That's how. The Chabad, the milkman, right? He was the brother of God Cheese, And he looked like, walked with a cap. He was what they called the white makubal of where did he live? Givatayim? Someone know where he lived? You know what I'm talking about? No, okay, not yet. Okay. He understands it a little bit differently, and he says the following. What does it mean that the Levim should be the Kohanim? So the way he understands it is the following. We know that the job, verse 40, the job of the Levim, kacha te Levim b'toch b'nei Yisrael v'tiharta otam. The job of the Levim, shesod ha-Levim, I'm in the, I don't know, he looks like a little hill. I don't know what that was supposed to be. Shesod ha-Levim hi avodat ha-tahara v'achana el ha-kedusha. The job of the Levim, we've spoken about this before, was to prepare the people for the Kohanim. In order to do the avoda of the Kohanim, which was kedusha, holiness, bringing korbanos, you had to be pure beforehand. So their job, that's why they were the gatekeepers. Are you worthy of entering into the base of Mikdash or not? Preparation. They were the singers, right? We know that before, if a person brought a korban and they had to confess, their confession, the Kohanim wasn't coming from the depth. They'd bring over some Leviim, start singing. And the singing would then, what? Inspire a heartfelt. So their job was to ensure that the service of the Kohanim would work. And that's how he explains that the smol is the midah of Yira, and Yira is in order to get us to ahava, to love of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. What was Korach saying? Ki kol haida kulam kedoshim. We're all holy. We don't need, someone fill in my sentence for me? Right, we don't need the middle stage of preparation. We're there already. The Panemius, the core of Klal Yisrael, is holy. Ki kol haida kulam kedoshim. We are holy. So we don't need the Levim to bring us to the level of the Kohanim. We can be the Kohanim ourselves and do the avoda itself. Using this in another language, I want to do 42 inside. Korach Sodek, 42, bottom right. Shekole da kulam kedoshim, vulam davar zenachon rak b'pnimius. You're right, they were holy. But where was the holiness? Inside of them. Achlo b'chitzonios. But it didn't, Leveriyod, always manifest in their behavior. I'm really holy, but that doesn't mean I'm always good. Doesn't mean I always do the right thing, right? Right? In my pnimius, in my inside, I am holy. But it doesn't necessarily transfer into the outer actions. Korach ta'an shein tzorich b'chitzonios. Korach says you don't need the outer world. It's enough to have what? The inside. It's enough, right? If I'm a good Jew inside, that's what? That's enough. Using this metaphor of inner and outer, that which is found inside the ground is the world of the inner. What's found outside the ground is the world of the outer. So that's what Moshe Rabbeinu says to Korach. If you're right that you don't need the outer world, and you can go straight into the inner world and everyone's holy, so then you'll be able to live in this world and nothing will happen to you. However, if I am right, and you need the outer world, and we're not yet ready for that world of just the inner world, so then the inner world will swallow you, and you'll stay in the inner world, while we'll stay out here in the outer world, perfecting ourselves till the two will match. You believe in the inner world? Gesundheit. If you think the inner world is not necessary and we can just have the outer world, so then God will keep you alive. That will be the test. And by the ground opening up, that was clear that what? You belong in the inner world, but the world isn't holding by what? The inner world just yet. Now, 44. There's another Levi who's similar to Korach, and that's Pinchas. Pinchas is a Levi, and he sees a prince of Israel acting inappropriately in public with a princess of Midian. Pinchas, unlike Korach in that situation will say, he's the prince of Israel, he's holy. What does Korach say? He's acting in a despicable way. Pinchas, thank you, is acting, I'm glad you're with me, is acting in a despicable way, and he's deserving of what? Death. And that's how he teaches. Vayakam mitocha Eidan 44, double squiggly. That Pinchas rose mitocha Eidah from among the congregation, deeper from the congregation of Korach. Korach is called Adat Korach. He learned the lesson of Korach. You don't just focus on the inner, you have to focus on the outer. What happened to Pinchas? He became a what? He became a Kohen. Korach, you want to become a Kohen, but you got to be able to take the Gevurah and move it into Chesed. Sometimes killing somebody is Chesed. What were you going to say?
The gematria of Pinchas is the same as Yitzchak, 208. Pinchas was a pupil of Yitzchak. So he is taking the Gevurah of Yitzchak to the highest level.
Right. Right.
Not the level of the Korah.
Right. So Pinchas is the gematria of Yitzchak 208, and he's taking that midah of din and elevating it to the highest level. Recognize, this is I don't have time for, but recognize that Yitzchak, who is Gevurah, is the same idea of schok, of laughter, and it's not by accident. I just heard this on a tape from Rav Waxman, that the second bracha of Shemona Esrei, which corresponds to Yitzchak Avinu of Gevurah, is all about chesed. That Gevurah and Chesed really go hand in hand. He saved OUisrael, and what reward does he get? Brisi Shalom, which is Kol Kulo Chesed. Now, let's just take this one step further, if we can, back of the next page, is that Cain was also the shoresh of both. We spoke about Korach. He's also the shoresh of Pinchas. Now we understand Cain so much greater. Cain brings from the fruit of the land. Cain's intentions were tremendous. He was the one who initiated bringing a korban to Hashem. What was the problem? He brought the worst fruit. Because what was Cain saying? It doesn't matter what it looks like on the outside. What matters is the inside. Korach wasn't able to be metak in that. He followed suit in that mindset. It was Pinchas who was able to be the rectification of Elisha. Pinchas in the dot, in whatever source this is, I don't know. It's a dot on the right-hand side of the back page. Elab Pinchas tikem bechina zu bekach shachein lavash bigdei Gevurah mesitra de Cain upal bechol oz letakenet achitzonios lilachem b'maisim roim sheinam homim kedushas OUisrael b'masav tikem bechinas Cain v'zachal lechosh hein et midat hagvura vein et midat hachesed v'zachal lalo madreget levi dargas Kohen. He was the one who rectified this by recognizing that the outer world has to be dealt with. It's not just a Jew at heart, it's about who we are. And that, my friends, is our final idea. Hodul Hashem. In, again, the Tasha Rebbe, Avodah, 47 through 49. The idea is that our body is the midah of Gevurah, and our neshama, double squiggly in 48. Ki agufu bechinas din, our body is the aspect of din. V'neshama b'chinat chesed, our neshama is the aspect of kindness. Vayidei shadam mashlit et koach haneshama ala guf, hu mamtik et hagvuros b'chasadim. Our job is to have the neshama be able to overcome the body. We have to be able to have the chesed over the gevurah. And that will then be mamtik the gevurah, and then be able to enter into a world of complete gevurah. And Pinchas is Eliyahu, which is very good. Pinchas is Eliyahu, and he never dies. He has metaken the guf so completely, and that is what's going to bring the geula v'imheira b'amenu amen v'amen. I have, again, Arise and Aspire. You may have 4 copies, but your friend may not have any.